Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2021 Sunstone Symposium. This is session 222, which is New Poetry on God the Mother. At Sunstone, we are making it a goal to build a community that allows many ways for people to express their faith. Our tagline is, "There is more than one way to Mormon." We invite you to help us build a community where all paths are given space to be better understood. Please support us in our mission by making a donation and subscribing to sunstone.org. After the symposium, the Sunstone staff will edit, polish, and re-upload all of this year's session videos to the Whova app. It'll take about 2 weeks for everything to be available. But once it is, every video will be available to watch and rewatch in the Whova app through the end of 2021. I am now swapping to speaker view. There we go. All right. I'm making sure. There we go. All right. That I am in the right view. Grace is reminding me, which is very kind of her. That'll be the thing that we need to cut out when we go to fix that later. All right, about this presentation, I'm not sure why my attendee view is not following this right now, but that's okay. Carolyn, we'll just look at you. We all want to anyways. It'll be all right. The past decade has sent an outpouring of excellent poetry exploring the theme of the Divine Mother. Dove's Song, Heavenly Mother in Mormon Poetry, Mother's Milk, Poems in Search of Heavenly Mother, I Gave Her a Name, A Tree at the Center, An Imperfect Roundness, and other anthologies and collections have contributed to the ways we are imagining God the Mother back into being. In this session, a range of poets will read new work written the past 3 years that continues the vital exploration and creative re-empowering of the mother. All right, I'm now going to read to introduce you to each of our speakers before we begin today. Dayna Patterson is the author of If a Mother Braids a Waterfall, which is Signature Books 2020, and Titania in Yellow, which is Pork Belly Press 2019, both of which I recommend. She co-edited Dove's Song, Heavenly Mother in Mormon Poetry, which is Peculiar Pages 2018. Rachel Hunt Steenblik researched Heavenly Mother full-time for BYU for what became the BYU Studies article, which was a Mother There survey of historical teachings about Mother in Heaven. She also co-edited Mormon Feminism, Essential Writings for the Oxford University Press, and authored Mother's Milk, Poems in Search of Heavenly Mother, and I Gave Her a Name for BCC Press. She currently teaches philosophy at Wenzhou Qin University in China and shares tiny stories of small but significant kindness at Instagram.com /tinykindnesses or /tinykindnesses /. Tyler Chadwick, an award-winning writer, editor, and teacher, received his PhD in English and the teaching of English from Idaho State University. He teaches writing at Utah Valley University and has 3 books to his name, 2 anthologies, Fire in the Pasture, 21st Century Mormon Poets, which was from Peculiar Pages in 2011, and Dove's Song, Heavenly Mother in Mormon Poetry, which is Peculiar Pages 2018, and a collection of poetry and essays, Field Notes on Language and Kinship, which was the Mormon Artists Group Publishing 2013. He lives in Ogden, Utah with his wife, Jess, and their 4 daughters. Kathryn Knight Sonntag is the author of The Tree at the Center, which is BCC Press 2019. Her creative works have appeared or are forthcoming in the Colorado Review, the Inflectionist Review, the Sublinary Review, Amethyst Review, Psaltery and Lyre, Wilderness Interface Zone, Exponent 2, Segalah, Dialogue, A Journal of Mormon Thought, www.visitutah.com/she, Blossom as the Cliff Rose, Mormon Legacies and the Beckoning Wild, which is Torrey House Press of 2021, and others. She earned a BA in English and a BS in Environmental Studies before earning her MLA in Landscape Architecture and Environmental Planning. Her thesis focused on the role of transcendence in landscapes and greatly informs her creative pursuits. She currently serves on the poetry board of Sekolah. Madeline Thatcher is a graduate of Brigham Young University and the University of Utah, where her research focused on the intersections between race, religion, and gender in modernist and contemporary literature. Her previous work has been published in Criterion and The Exponent too. When she's not reading, writing, or traipsing through Europe, she's probably looking for the best donut she can find in whatever city she's in. I think this is a really good choice. Allie Spikes is a former managing editor of the Bellingham Review and currently serves as poetry prose editor at Psaltery and Lyre. Her essays and poetry have appeared or are forthcoming in The Rumpus, the Los Angeles Review, River Teeth, Bellingham Review, Literary Mama, and Dialogue. Melody Newell Johnson is poetry editor for Sekolah Journal. Her first full-length poetry manuscript, An Imperfect Roundness, was published in 2020 by BCC Press. She earns a living as a registered nurse and grows a respectable garden in the American West, where she lives with her spouse, Jeff. The divine feminine shows up in her writing, sometimes by invitation, other times as a delightful surprise. Lynn Pearson is a poet, author, playwright, screenwriter, performer, speaker, general freelance philosopher. She was born in Salt Lake City and earned her MA in theater from Brigham Young University. Her most recent publication is Finding Mother God, Poems to Heal the World. And she's also one of my heroes. Y'all have a wonderful time today. And I would like to turn the time over to Dayna to run the forum this morning. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather, for introducing everybody. Welcome to this session. Thank you for being with us. And thank you to all the poets who have agreed to read today. So as Heather mentioned in the abstract for this session, Dove's Song, Heavenly Mother in Mormon Poetry, came out in 2018 and attempted to give a historical perspective of the many poems that have been written since the founding of the church, almost since the very beginning of the church's founding, all these poems about Heavenly Mother. And in the last decades, that poetry has just continued to flourish and explode, really. And the publishing of Dove's Song wasn't the end of poetry about Heavenly Mother. There continues to be more and more written and published about her, particularly in this field of poetry for whatever reason. So I'm very excited to be sharing this forum with some wonderful poets who are continuing to write and publish about Heavenly Mother. We're going to proceed in a super democratic alphabetical order today. So the order of the readers will be Tyler Chadwick, followed by Melody Newey Johnson, followed by me, Dayna Patterson, and then after that, Carolyn Pearson, Kathryn Knight Sonntag, Allie Spikes, Rachel Hunt Steenblik, and then Madeline Thatcher is going to bring us home. So we'll proceed in that order. Right, Tyler, you ready to try this again? Okay.
Let's do it. Okay, we'll start over this time, hopefully with a better connection. First poem. First couple are persona poems. First one, God the Mother as dramaturge directs Juliet's understudy. What's your line, love? No, not the one naming Rose or Romeo, or to Lawrence about lurking beneath serpent skins or lying with dead men's bones, or to the vial about this conceit of death and night, receptacle of flesh and memory. But in the tomb, after you've bent to plant one on your husband's corpse to divert his rigor into the troubled pool of your flesh, what, as you thrust his knife through the adolescent bloom of your breast? Say it, love. Give me anger and aching. This is thy sheath. Yes, a jacket to warm the blade's cold irony. Body up to the rupture. Imagine it a peephole pricked through your soul into the serpent's mouth. See how he uses Romeo's rib to pick your future from his teeth, how his venom floods the amniotic sac of your love. Recall how Hussy played it, her unflinching command of the dagger, her double-fisted double plunge, her herald wrenching toward the wound, then her slow crescendo down the pillar to pillow, at last mark on Whiting's upper chest. And my farewell performance at the Globe before leaving the spotlight for dramaturgy, eyes glazed, my face a lamentation, arms pendulous at my sides, my gown a slow, full-bodied glissade, rose, hibiscus syriacus, hanging like a bloodstain over my bosom, stem slinking down my navel, and between closed legs as I snaked and pulled, at last mark against Romeo's rigor. Use the stage to brood as you would above a purgatorial plain spread thick with the ache and promise of apocalypse. Imagine the audience rising, old garments shed, to grieve the unwieldy blood of your fervid love. How they twist to face the mystery beyond. How you've brought the trio in the top left balcony seats near enough rebirth that they blossom into longing beyond the stage's red stain. And again, that's after Rose of Sharon by J. Kirk Richards. Now, the second poem is titled God the Mother Speaks to Ficus Sycamorus. And this I must give credit to Dayna for the title, because she has a series of God the Mother Speaks poems that weaseled their way into my subconscious. And when I was writing this one, that title just came out. So God the Mother Speaks to Ficus Sycamorus. This is after a painting called Zacchaeus by J. Kirk Richards, which is after the story in the New Testament of the tax collector climbing up in a tree to get closer to hear Jesus speak. Not office decor, not prop, not backdrop, not even setting or scenery. No, love, you've always been the narrative crux. Your branches pregnant with a taxman's presence, him using your reach to eavesdrop on Jesus, to boost himself above the crowd's prattle. Your canopy anticipates the teller's tabernacle of words, the splendid womb of exchange. You bear your fruit well in his navel string of a limb where he sits mid-startle against the plot twist, holding his perch to brace for deliverance. Sure, the backlit berth barely rustles the sprawl nearest your act, and the generations just beyond, say, the children of the child nearest the viewing pane, see how she tilts her head toward the throng, mouth wide, tries to suckle from the tail? See how they forget? Even Zacchaeus moves on after Jesus calls him out, calls him down, invites himself over for tea with the taxman and his family. But the teller's finger reaches beyond his words, beyond pigment, beyond the crescent limb he touches at last, always to the garden, to the mother tree, and Eve, knowledge gnawing at her lips like juice pressed from 1,000 figs. How could she not savor every drop? As Adam returned from a morning jog with father, bathed in the stream, then reached to towel off with the apron I had taught Eve to make from your foremother's generous leaves. And then the last poem. This one is new. It will appear in the forthcoming issue of Dialogue. It is called Big Bang with Sternutation and Seer Stones. 1. In the beginning, Mother worked Ilum into a loose sphere, a swirl of stray particles stirred by the breeze blown through her studio window circled her workbench, tickled her nose. She rubbed it, sneezed. Light filled the globe she held in her palm, seared it to a sea of glass and fire. She polished it marble smooth with her apron, then calling father to come see, balanced it on the brim of the universe, stepped back, watched it sputter, spin, orbit into the cosmos' overturned hat. 2. Faces pressed tight in a hat's mouth. Mother, father watched the orb whirl, churn, effloresce, breathe. Their eyes burning with focus, they traced its off-kilter pirouette through the darkness, translating its circuit around their peeping into prophecy. Its respiration stirred their fervor, flooded their knowing with the promise and uncertainty of life sprawling across the sphere. Consciousness flickered in the chaos. Mother exhaled, whispered the spark to smolder, flare, blaze. 3. God bodies stirred in the burning. Peaked, mother, father leaned in, inhaled, ash whirling helical in their huffing, the whirl bearing the paired Adama. Dyad tangled fetal in red soil. Mother, father praised the unfolding, prodded the bodies to sigh, to rise, to shake suit from saurian skin, to amble forth fever hot and hungry and plunder the gods' orchard. 4. Baskets ripe with their picking, their take, the Adama, weary from reaching, looked Godward, stretched, sat against the tree. The orchard's dappled canopy, whispering like scales confessing the gods' oracles, gossiped with the harvest. Eavesdropping, the Adama, insatiate, palmed a droop, took a bite, breathed its sweetness, while mulling its flesh, its inebriating grace. 5. Fingering the droopstone, tracing the ancient and always unfolding breviary etched in the seed face, the Adama breathed in 2, 3, 4, breathed out 2, 3, 4, 5, blew open the cosmos. Emergence and movement murmured in the reverie. Mother, father, chatting in the next room, trilling laughter and let there be, their gerunds palimpsest and penumbrae, life written on and written over, the groove of ritual and remembering, epiphanies and recurring dreams. Their conversation seared the droopstone, seared the open palm of the Adama's peeping. Their seed cracked wide, sighed flaming tongues of quanta through the holy book of appetence and consciousness. And that is all. Thanks for letting me be a part of this, Dayna.
I'm so glad that you were able to get a better connection, Tyler, so we could hear all of your poems. That's great. And your book is coming out soon with BCC Press, correct?
As far as I know, it is.
Remind us of the title and maybe about when we can look for that.
The title is, at this point, Litany with Wings. And I've been told it should be before the end of the year. So in the next, I'm guessing, the last couple months of the year.
Fantastic.
Who knows? I should follow up on that.
We will be watching for that to come out. Thanks, Tyler. Melody, do you want to take the stage?
Thank you. I'm
Sorry,
really happy
Tyler.
to be here. Can you hear me okay? So I'm going to depart from your directive for this first poem that is from my book. This was probably also included in Dove's Song. And I have Lynn Pearson to thank for this, as many of us have to thank for many things. This was written, this is the first poem I wrote about Heavenly Mother 30 or more years ago, and it was after I first watched her perform her one-woman play, Mother of the Morning. It's called Missing God. I don't remember her voice, but sometimes in the mountains, I think I hear an echo of the flute she played. The next poem is from Blossom as a Cliff Rose. And it is a shape poem or a concrete poem. Quilt blocks. And the poem is called I Sleep Beneath a Quilt. I sleep beneath a quilt and dream of cotton, lace, silk, of women's hands held just so, the needle set, thread pulled through beeswax over tongue, stitches sung while women sew memories. I sleep beneath music made by women's hands, dream beneath a quilt made by my grandmothers, and while I sleep, They lay their needles down and touch my feet. Damn. They lay their quilted hands on my head, heart, belly, breast, and bless me. What is the garment of God's love if not a quilt, a blanket blessing from the hands who made it? Who dressed us when we left the garden? Who made the skins we wear? I wake beneath a quilt sung by the mother, her music weaving sunrise through darkness, her visage wrapped around me in grandmother's flower garden and stars. God is a farmer's wife. She's been awake since 5 because it's her nature, and breakfast will be ready when you come. I'm going to back up. Just so you know, this poem visits us in pre-mortality, which looks very much like mortality, and then moves into mortality, which looks very much like pre-earth life. God is a farmer's wife. She's been awake since 5 because that is her nature, and breakfast will be ready when you come. She knows every recipe by heart. She knows the sound of your feet moving down the hall toward the kitchen across those few creaky boards. Knows your sister and brother's sound too, because every footfall bears witness of its own. She is warm and round and strong, and when she speaks, the sun begins to rise. She wakes it for you. Yesterday, she plowed fields and fed horses in the middle of the day while you slept because you were tired. When the time comes to dream yourself away from this place, she won't forget the sound of your feet, your quiet breathing. When you go, she'll bless your skin to remember the warm, round sun, your mind to recall the smell of earth, even if you forget the plow where you're going, even if the ground is too hard. She wants you to go. Find your way. Learn the way horses whinny, each in their own voice. You'll breathe their sweet aroma up close, no two alike. She knows them like she knows you. And she knows the ground they cover when they run, every steep, every valley. She hears them when she sleeps. She hears the grain as it grows to feed them, the music it makes brushing the palms of your hands when you pass through, before or after quail who run unseen below, and your hips. She knows how the grain flicks against them like horse's tail. She wants you to listen for her in whinny and hoof, in tail swish and quail scurry, to taste the song the chick would have sung if it hadn't been made into scrambled eggs for your breakfast. She wants you to remember her soft apron, how the colors stay bright, even after infinite wearings in the kitchen or at the plow. She won't miss you when you're gone, because you are never gone. The floor still squeaks where your feet found their hold in the morning, your feet when they were soft and barely awake. Thank you for this opportunity.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Melody. I love those poems. Your poem about the quilter, my grandma just passed away and she was a master quilter, and that just touched me. And the beautiful farmer's wife poem, you know, I love that one. Actually, I was just at my mom's house and we found a quail egg in her backyard, just on the ground. A little quail had laid its egg there, and I got some cool macro shots of it. Anyway, I'm also going to read a poem that is published in Blossom as the Cliff Rose. This is a new anthology edited by Karen Anderson and Danielle Beezer-Dubrasky, Moribund Legacies and the Beckoning Wild, and it's a wonderful collection. And I know several poets here have pieces in this collection. This is Our Lady of the Gulls. I would just say about this poem, I like to imagine God the Mother in pioneer history, in different places in our shared stories where sometimes we don't think of her being. So I'm imagining when those crickets came and were devouring the crops, that people were invoking God the Mother in that situation. Our Lady of the Gulls. First, the killing frost. And when crickets boiled up from the ground like an Old Testament plague, merciful Lady, we cried out to you. When they stormed our barns, houses, clothes, cupboards, we cried out to you. When their black bodies swarmed our springtime crops, devouring the corn and small grain, we attacked with sticks, clubs, brushes, brooms, and willows. We knocked them from the stalks. We crushed them under boot heels. We pounded them with mallets. Still they came by the thousands, millions, little cannibals consuming their own dead with our food. We beat our pans and bells to scare them, and we cried out for you. We dug trenches of water for them to drown in, and we cried out for you. We set the sagebrush and forbs on fire, and we begged your intervention, Lady. At last, you came in a cloud of wings. When it passed between us and the sun, a shadow covered the field. You heard our farmers' prayers and brought your mile of gulls, O Lady of entomophagy. You commanded them to eat, and they did eat and eat and eat, disgorging along the water ditches lumps of cricket, pellets of parts. Then they flew to the fields for more. Some may call them scavengers, dirty birds, rats on wings, but we know better. Lady of the Laris californicus, we hear in their screech the sound of salvation. There were farmers in that poem too, Melody. There's like a theme going, the farmers. This piece is coming out in the summer issue of Exponent 2. It's called Our Lady of Cancellation, Consolation. Another mandate to shelter in place. I will have to call Mom, uninvite her to come to the Thanksgiving feast we'd planned. No key lime for Kim, no sleepover, no hotel pool. How could I forgive myself, Lady of Lonely Holidays, if I were the cause of her falling ill? Her cancer-battled body, her oxygen tanks and inhalers. Oh, Lady, give me guilt, give me guts. I texted her weeks ago about the 20-something friends, Narum and Norum, their 36-hour hug that broke the Guinness World Record. Let's do this, I said. Okay, she said. We were going to hug and hug and hug and hug and hug and cook and eat and hug. We'd put together another puzzle, catch up on a year's gossip, feeling each piece lock into its one perfect place like us, when our arms locked around each other, mother and daughter, jigsawed together. Instead, I'll wrap her old scarf around me, nuzzle its softness, her eye color caught in its sage green. Sagacious Lady, teach me how to give thanks when I'm emptied out, thankless. Grant me grace enough to ungather, unembrace. I'm going to read one more poem. One of the snarky things I like to do is when I find a poem that I love that talks about God the Father and uses those he pronouns really prevalently, I like to try to write a version for God the Mother. So I have a few of these, and one was recently published in Segola. Is called A Goddess in the House, and it's after a poem called A God in the House by Wallace Stevens, but this is A Goddess in the House. If there must be a God in the house, must be, let her hands be flowered, her leaven be light, hips wide from birthing eternity. If she walks barefoot as moonlight, her robe trailing blue bats and tree roots, aching us into insomniac days, best to leave the key under the mat in case she wends her way back to threshold. Night beetles in her locks, crickets chirping from deep pockets. Let her speak in a language beyond language we don't remember ever learning or forgetting. Before time was a bell's tongue. She must be capable of tricking goodness from us, honey from hive. She must be a symphony, open, trilling as tones are, as air filling every crevice is, as sound strumming our fine bones is. If there must be a God in the house, let her be one who exceeds us in stubbornness, and if not heard in the first or second notes or 103rd, let her ring us and ring us with her song. Thank you so much, and I'll turn the time over to Carolyn. Don't forget to unmute yourself. Here we go. We want to hear you.
You know, that should be in the young women's theme that they recite. Don't forget to unmute yourself. Forever and always. It's really delicious just to sit here and look at all you beautiful, really splendid women. Carrying on such a vital work. You know, when Peggy Fletcher Stack wrote her article not long ago for the Trib, saying, Heavenly Mother, is it a moment or a movement? Well, it's really more than that. It is a paradigm shift. It is a paradigm shift that involves words other than just Heavenly Mother. But the concept of God as Mother is at the basis of so much good, so many good things that are happening. Oh, wow. This first poem that I wish to read is, all of the rest of them will be in this book that has been mentioned, Finding Mother God. I wrote this during the time, and then I decided not to put it in here because it is very specifically Mormon, and I just wanted the book to be beyond that specificity, that just limitation. But I've never read this anywhere, and it's not exactly on Heavenly Mother, but it is on the whole circumstance of missing her. During the sacrament, the 8-year-old newly baptized takes the blessed bit of bread from the silver tray in her brother's hand, glances at her father, who is always on the stand, and whispers to her mother, "When I'm 12, I'll get to pass the sacrament, won't I?" Shh. The voice of her 10-year-old brother in a loud whisper across their mother's folded arms. "No. Why? 'cause you're a girl. The 8-year-old's mind, full of every Harry Potter book, half of Louisa May Alcott, and many other worthy friends, speaks silently. Maybe when I'm 13, the voice of her 16-year-old brother, who kneels at the white table on the stand to bless the tiny cups of water, that they do always remember him. I love Jesus. Maybe when I'm 14, absolutely when I'm 15, he will remember me. Silence. Then the voice of her other brother, sweeter than goodnight moon. I do always remember you. Our mother. Remembering that Jesus named his father from the cross and said, Abba, Abba, why hast thou forsaken me? And remembering too that on the kibbutz, I learned that even today, children speaking Hebrew call their father Abba and their mother Ima. I am amazed to find in my balancing hands 2 balancing words. And the first speaking of the new word is this, Ima, Ima. Why have we forsaken thee? Most people in our church have not been very interested in the history of the concept of goddess, but it's so important. Message from Mother, appreciation to mythologist Joseph Campbell. For all those little gifts you gave to the mythologists and archaeologists to give to me, I thank you, Mother. For that precious big-bellied figurine pressed by Paleolithic hands and the magical naked outline of you on the walls of caves, I thank you. I thought I was a motherless child in an always motherless house, and then your little surprises began to come, as did my tears, my grateful tears. For there was your soft and ancient voice. I am here. I am female. I am divine. Thank you for the word mother, spoken centuries before the word father, for blood and baby do not lie, but testify that mother was the first thing, the power that carried and birthed the universe and all in it, the sea, the earth, the animals, the upright ones, the men and women who lived in peace within her safe cycle and gathered food to the easy sound of wind and rain. I am here. I am female. I am divine. I thank you, Mother, for brooding over your people when the dark times came, when the invaders came, the Indo-Europeans from the north and the Semites from the desert, turning the birthing upside down. So Athena was born of the forehead of Zeus, and Eve was born of the rib of Adam. Their gods were male, and their swords were bronze, and they named you abomination, and butchered and buried you without knowing they were planting you. for you are the transformer who turns a seed into a tree, the tree of life, who is sturdy and many and grew in all places. The goddess of many names that I read now on pages made from the tree that speak for the tree. I am here. I am female. I am divine. Athena, Ceres, Caradwen, Demeter, Diana, Hathor, Inanna, Isis, Kali, Ma'at, Venus, hundreds more, shining black or ivory or red, and each a name that points to mother. The past does what the past is and is gone. Men are still warriors, but not all. For many understand that our very being turns now on our turning to you, our mother, who is ready to correct our view of heaven so that God herself and God himself, who were always one, can join on earth to bless the confused billions. The next step is ours, daughters of our mother. And did we ever think she would not uphold us in our eternal mission? We thank you, Mother, as now we rise, the women with microphones in the halls of government, the halls of justice, of media, of religion, the women penning books and scribbling poems, the women helping women buy a goat or a sewing machine, the women marching with signs and songs. There is power in our words, and our words are these. We are here. We are female. We are divine.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Is that your last poem you're reading for us today?
Oh, I had others marked, but my timer for 10 minutes went off.
Okay, yeah, we may have some more time at the end.
Okay.
We'll see. Let's move on to Kathryn. Thank you so much, Carolyn. Moving as always.
Thank you, Dayna. I'm so happy to be here and to see all of you and to feel your words. Thank you so much for your introspection and sharing what I know is a huge part of your spiritual journey. I just have one poem to share, and it's one that I wrote after my collection, The Tree at the Center, came out. I have a section in that book called The Tree of Ascent. And I was very fascinated, I'm still very fascinated with the image of the tree of life as an ascension image. So an image that speaks to our personal transformation journey. And it's one that is archetypal. So Carolyn mentioned a bit about the history of the divine feminine and throughout the time and space. And this image of the tree of life as feminine, as a spiritual path, as well as an embodied being, a divine feminine being, is ubiquitous. And we have sort of tastes of this imagery from the Book of Mormon, especially the Tree of Life vision and the idea from Alma of the Word of God or eternal life growing inside of us as a tree. And so after the collection came out, I was still sort of thirsty for poetry about ascension. And the first one I found was a poem by John Donne titled Ascension. And in true form, it was very much, you know, this feminine or masculine interpretation and sort of a ode to Jesus and his path that is straight and narrow and bright like the sun, and just a very masculine version of ascension. And I wanted to do sort of what Dayna described doing, is to sort of write a companion or response poem, what it might look like to be on an ascension path from a feminine vantage. And so I'm going to read his poem so you get a taste of that tradition and that language, and then I'll read mine, titled Ascension as well. And it will be coming out this spring in Dialogue. Salute the last and everlasting day, joy at the uprising of this sun and sun. Ye whose true tears or tribulation have purely washed or burnt your drossy clay, behold, the highest parting hence away lightens the dark clouds which he treads upon, nor doth he by ascending show alone, but first he, and he first enters the way. O strong ram, which hast battered heaven for me, mild lamb, which with thy blood hast marked the path, bright torch, which shinest that I the way may see. O, with thy own blood quench thy own just wrath, and if thy Holy Spirit my muse did raise, deign at my hands this crown of prayer and praise. And this one's mine. Embrace the first and forever night, heartening as this moon journeys from cresting to full figured, and in this ecstasy begins to fall earthward, pulling me down to orchards heavy and underground, into mysteries of regeneration, soft, bellied seeds nursing, death, life, death, her step, makes darkness delicious. Licking sweet syrups from fungi kingdoms, Mother God is not the sun, the straight golden path, but braided roots, white pears of underworld offering themselves into these my hands, dispelling the garment of wrath. Lady Wisdom reigns in me, in time and ever presence, to my own recovered humanity, my heart, finally. My holy cloud, the only Holy Ghost, knit my heart with wind and rain and wolf. Thank you.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one who's finding these gorgeous poems and then like, I need to do a God the Mother version, like a goddess version of that poem. That's so great. Thank you, Kathryn. All right, next up is Allie Spikes.
Hi, I just want to throw out a big thanks to Dayna for putting this panel together. Also, thank you all for your wonderful work. And thanks also to Sunstone for another great conference this year. It's always fun to be involved. I just want to give you a little context for my piece. This particular poem, it draws on Inya Slavi and the Jesus Prayer. And this particular version is turned toward the controversy surrounding Janice Merrill Allred's notion of God the Mother as the Holy Ghost. So just things to keep in mind, I guess, as I read. Also, just in terms of credits, there's a line in here from Ovid and an allusion to the Modeani. And there's actually a phrase in here from a poem of Dayna's. So thank you, my darling friend, for inspiring me. Okay. Holy Ghosted with God the Mother, or the Loneliness Prayer. 1. They don't write greeting cards for mothers who cannot love, nor prayers for those destined to be cherished. 2. I used to think my mother lived in the bathroom. Her door's brass latch was the breast I was best acquainted with. Rooting ceaselessly, I chanted the mother prayer. Mom, my drying milk cow, radix of grape nuts, ground beef, and gumball dimes. have mercy on my original loneliness. On my curl-tipped strawberry hair, smashed dress in damp body heat, wrinkled a sneak in the dark to steal a spoonful of powdered sugar in the pantry. Ravenous, I inhale and tiptoe between coughing fits to solitary sanctum under my bed, spoon in hand, ready for the miracle of abundance. 3. Love's tale fed to the Mormon in me conjures 3 male gods, the key to their company, more men, bishops, prophets, apostles, presidents, Jesus and husbands. The key is their company, always multiple. The biblical one stood only for unity, a collective, no mavericks in the body of Christ. The sheep, dust soft and pliable, ever hoarsely bleating. Lord Jehovah, Lamb of Elohim, answer the animal in me, its desperation for solidarity, suffer me every cruelty, I beseech thee. Take full advantage, but afterward, and for all time, be with me. Let presence define clemency. Isn't that what we mean? 4. How can a superchiasmatic nucleus detect light without amity? Sleepless isolation, a chink in the mirror of quarantine. When there is nothing, there is language. But can hypothalamic hunger be sated on the semiotics of divine love? I spent the shark of time, a shadow spoon in hand, ready, pulsing, metabolizing. 5. Original ghosting, it is promised to the Mormons. The Holy Ghost shall be thy constant companion. I am unimpressed, God, the Father so fucking smug, very important at playing human chess. His refusal to text back, always phoning it in with a story of phantom proxy. Robert Lowell wrote, a ghost is someone, death has left a hole. I hear if you're going to ghost someone, at least send the emoji, one concrete mercy, a visible something. The lone unpardonable sin is blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. But Lucky Star party time, holiest of days, you'd at least get a title, Son of Perdition. Perhaps as a daughter, I'm exempt, but only because I don't count. Or I do, but only in the way echo counts to Narcissus. Into the whole of my palm, I recite, Almighty Abba, narcissistic grantor of mass deficit, the sons of perdition have hired me as scribe to inform you they will unionize. 6. Apostasy anxiety could take the tonic of equity and heal. Swallow it down your prophet throats and reveal my mother to me. Our Lady of busted compasses, curse Charybdis and let Skylet vomit you, black and shiny, out of her belly uncurl on the well-lit stage for us. We've been waiting to applaud your feathers. 7. In quarantine, any union can dissolve like sugar in spit, be swallowed, inhaled, suffocate in each cloistered breath. With each holy sigh, breath's moisture begets chiasmic eye rolls and retinal mold. In English, nothing is just. Lonesome gives us the stuff of separation. There is a one, and the sum is the stuffness that makes us sad. Onesome is only in the Urban Dictionary, a cheeky nod to the things one does between the sheets to one's own cheeks. Union, a step or 3 removed from the original one, entails a togetherness, a something to be had with a someone, a loneliness brought next to godliness, even if only in hell isn't all religion rooted in the human desperation to evade loneliness. Grief is always entrenched in the without, the separation, apartness. The whole Mormon faith is founded on this promise, that I'll know not what but who awaits me on the other side, to assure me that I am cherishable, to cherish. If the anatomy of that verb could be dissected, aligned with the neurons inside the minds of those we expect to touch us so tenderly. 8. Our Lady of trusting fools, abundant in your faithlessness, caprine orphan of vetch and tear, how futile to woo a fleeting phantom. You've mercilessly tangled my retort within me, so I'll be my own body's body to your deserted ghost and insist to myself that I'm cherishing it.
Mm.
Amazing, Allie. Whenever I hear one of Allie's poems, I'm like, the verbal pyrotechnics. And also I need to spend like many, many hours with that piece because wow. Gorgeous, thank you.
Mm.
Our next reader is going to be Rachel Hunt Steenblik.
Thank you, Dayna. My first set will be from my book, I Gave Her a Name, published a few years ago. Ampersand. The mother believes in ampersands. She is a mother and a lover and an artist and a poet. She embraces her own and. Space. The mother is not afraid of her growing body, her still swollen breast, her soft belly. She knows she deserves to take up space. She knows her space brought forth the world. Proxies. Heavenly Mother would hold our hair back if she could when we throw up. Instead, she sends proxies having authority. Earth mothers, fathers, midwives. They give tiny sips of water, fruit popsicles, and clean us up as many times as needed. After creation. After creation, the mother needed to rest. But before she slept, she held the world to her skin and sighed, "You are good." A trail of small items. The mother is leaving a trail of small items, something other than breadcrumbs, something the birds won't eat. She is leaving birds. She is leaving forest. She is leaving mountains, and laughter and heartbreak and the longing for home, to find our way back to her, to at least try. What Stephen taught me. The mother is the shepherdess of rats and humans. She answers from the sky. She knows what love is. It even matters to her. She knows we're all broken, but not unhealed. She can't take us with her yet, but she can leave us with a blessing, can sit in rooms with women weeping, remembering, can offer healing milk from her own hands. When she's handed the book, 1. When she's handed the book, she clutches it to her heart and cries, knowing deep in her bones that the plates buried deep in the earth were passed from fathers to sons, to brothers, to nephews, to grandsons, never mothers, to daughters, to sisters, to nieces, to granddaughters. When she finishes the book, she writes of women's hands on women's heads, blessings before birth, quotes that can catch you, the deep part of her heart, and cries. Her fleshly tablet is tattooed with a fine scrawl of unrepeating names for God, mommy, daddy, parents. Her body is the veil split open. Her eyes are clear. All day long, she sacrifices these words for those unburied on the earth, mothers, daughters, sisters, nieces, granddaughters, fathers, sons, brothers, nephews, grandsons. She opens herself to the world and clasps her children's bare hands. 2. When she holds the book, she hears voices crying from the dust. Prophetesses, priestesses, poetesses whispering, "Write me, write me." 3. When she's handed the book, she falls to the earth and thanks God. Her prayers have been answered, her cries heard. 4. When she's handed the book, she walks slowly up the mountain and listens. 5. When she's handed the book, she rests her fingers on the marks, letters pressed upon plates. They are cool to her touch. 6. When she's handed the book, she hands it back. She carries libraries of women's words deep in her bones. She needs new plates to write them down. 7. She is handed the book. What Rosie taught me. The mother holds us tightly, even when we don't want to be held, even when we are toddlers, backs arched, legs kicking. Still she holds us, still we are hers. The God who weeps. The mother cries that commercials she doesn't know are commercials. She cries at every birth and every death. She will cry at yours and mine. She cries at the gentleness and cruelty of others, at others' hurts, others' loneliness, others' hopes, others' tries. She cries at a particularly beautiful piece of artwork, including sometimes her own. The way she quilts the sky in pinks and blues and purples and oranges and hazy grays. She cries at the way the trees look when her sun's light leaves for the night and the gradual darkening before. She cries at track meets when someone breaks a record or runs a particularly glorious race, and when someone doesn't but keeps going. Prodigal daughter. The lost daughter woke up and returned to herself, and determined she no longer wanted to be lost, and determined to return to her mother. When she was still very far, her mother saw her and had compassion, dropped everything she was carrying, her golden weaving and grief, and ran to her, her precious daughter now found, and threw herself into her arms and kissed her. Hide and seek. 1. The mother and I play hide and seek. I count loudly while she runs to hide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then, ready or not, here I come. And I am ready to find her, to at least begin looking. 2. After a long search, I give up. I yell, Ollie, Ollie, oxen free. I yell, you can come out now, you won. 3. The mother and I don't play hide and seek anymore. She said we grew too old to hide from one another. Soon we gave up on hiding altogether. Now we lay bare our fear and courage, our sorrow and joy, our secrets and shame, our lost loves and grief, our hopes and belief. This is the last poem from this book, and then I'll read 3 little ones that are unpublished. What Carrie taught me. The mother loves variety. All of the messy flowers and all of the messy gardens, all of the spenly leaning trees and all the spenly leaning forest, all of the weird fish and all the weird deep and shallow seas, all of the wild and tame animals and all of the wild and tame places animals live, and all of the 7 colors and all of the more than 7 rainbows, and the more than 7,000 colors without. Don't ask her to choose a favorite. She can't. We're the ones who pick and choose and demand rigid categories. And then the tiny set of a few unpublished. Supply and demand. She meets us at our hunger, our anger, our sadness. She makes and makes and makes and gives. She fills her own well. The mother fortifies herself with rainbows, trees, sunsets, so she has something to give us, so she has something to give herself. In case of emergency, the mother puts her mask on first. And my last poem, Follow. The mother said, even the fields have years that they don't produce. Lie still, uptake nutrients and sun and rest. Are you more than the sugar cane and rice? Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm so glad that you could join us all the way from the other side of the world. Is it almost bedtime for you?
It's 1 a.m.
Ugh.
So late.
We should have done some
It's okay.
rearranging of the time of this
I've
session.
done things at like 4 a.m. So this is actually not bad, like
Oh,
comparatively. So just staying up a little later, but it's okay.
oh my
I'm
goodness.
so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. Oh my goodness. All right, we're going to hear from Madeline Thatcher, and then we're going to try Tyler Chadwick again. So here we go, Madeline.
Hi, everybody. I'm really honored to get to read some of my work alongside some poets that I've admired for a really long time. And as a preface before I read, a few years ago, I was enrolled in a nonfiction creative writing class at the same time that I was working on my thesis for my master's program, which was about the Black feminine divine in contemporary African American poetry. Eventually, at the end of the course, my peers who were kind of, delivering me feedback eventually termed my work as one that wrote about networks of women. And so when I started writing poetry again last fall, as part of the Archives October Challenge, I found myself turning back to a lot of the same themes. The poems I'm going to share today are part of a full-length collection that I am hoping to finish by Labor Day. And while not all of them are directly about God the Mother, I hope that you'll be able to find her in the stories about the women who have made me. Because when I write about my mom and about my grandma and about Eve of Eden, I write of her. And I think that's just as powerful. So first is Angel. I am soft in all the wrong places. And with talk of angel wives and angel mothers, I ask instead to be a goddess. If hope is a thing with feathers, hope is a thing with talons too, a thing with too many eyes, and a flaming sword too heavy to hold. Cursed. When woman spat venom out with the apple, landing next to snake scales in the grass, her father greatly multiplied her sorrows. And when her daughters brought redemption through milk and blood, she instead declared that all generations should call her blessed. Seagull. The miracle wasn't even a miracle, the birds arriving in the wheat fields just to vomit cricket carcasses into the dirt underneath the summer sun. The winter frost still came, and my great-great-great-grandmother still died when the snow caved in on our cabin in the barren fields of Idaho. When I pray for deliverance, God instead sends pestilence, and I say thank you. I listen in the dark for squawks of gulls, lie still in the shadow of the mountains, breathe in the scent of the evening stars, and dream of ocean waves, going in and out, water on sand, sand on water. Ghost. There are two mirrors, and I start thinking about string theory. It's strange to see yourself in 4 dimensions, but that's what it is. An undulating line of women with black hair and white dresses pulling me backwards and forwards at the same time. There are 2 mirrors, and I am connected to all those who came before me and everyone who will come after. All of eternity is reflected in gilded gold, and I kneel at the altar for other wives and other daughters, clasping hands with poltergeists who know my name. There are 2 mirrors, and I am haunted by a future that has not happened and a past I cannot remember, living in a present that curls inward on itself, like a snake eating its own tail underneath a tree laden with fruit I have been asked not to eat, but I know full well I will. Destroyed. God grew a temple in the middle of an alfalfa field, and I go home to see it. During the tour, a man in a white suit gestures upward to an agave plant that is showering seeds across the ceiling, and he tells me they symbolize the children I will someday carry. I learn later that agave plants only flower before they are going to die, and I think how fitting when I do. Some days I think I will die without love, and other nights I believe I will die because of it. In the stories, God threatens Emma, but the agave seeds make it so the threats grow roots that strangle my great-grandmothers, my grandmas, my mother, myself. The words "for I will destroy her" carved deep into the muscles of my heart with a knife as sharp as bone. Parish, or A Poem for Ash Wednesday. We hear the scream of a siren, and my mother tells me someone's life is changing, a phrase her mother used to tell her too. To have the heartbreak hit your eardrums, to know that the stroke, the kitchen fire, the child found floating face down in a suburban pool has ripped up a life in the way that will turn this Tuesday into a circled square on a wall calendar, even though I will forget, because I will always forget, is to let another's pain become your own, an act of human kindness that no one will ever know but you. My mother once told me that when she held her babies for the first time, she wondered why the world hadn't stopped, why the Earth's axis hadn't paused its rotation to look at me, my sister, my brother, slick with blood and gulping air into lungs that had only known fluid for months on end. And when her mother died the day after Easter, she thought the same thing, wondered why her mother stopped breathing, but her tulip started blooming. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I am grown out of the acrid soil in my papa's garden, and I will die on a shining hill for years I tried in vain to climb, while I let another girl who looks like me consider the lilies that start sprouting where tears meet dirt, salty and sweet and laden with promise. Daughters. My mother teaches me how to clean blood out of bed sheets, the dark rust spot a reminder that my body is waiting for a baby, half of which I have stored away in a place I cannot see, a real-life King Solomon dilemma in my womb. I teach myself how to scrub blood from underneath my fingernails, how to hold my breath when I awake in the night and the pain is sharp but hollow, how to hope for sons, because I know what the world will do to daughters. I break my mother's heart when I tell her that I hate her, and in that moment we both believe it. And I put it back together when she tells me how she pushed and sent me screaming into afternoon sunlight, and I say thank you. We grin as we eat ice cream on the back porch, and I admire her freckles, and she smooths the wrinkles in my forehead, and we hold hands while we walk, even though I feel I am too old for it. She squeezes my hand 3 times. I love you, and tells me I never will be. And my last one is one called Celestial. A friend asked me what I thought heaven was like, and I told them I imagined it a bit like a college campus in the fall, with an old library too big to ever finish and a breeze that smells sweet like pine sap when I walk through the courtyard under the stars. My mother dreams of a beach with golden sand where she has perfect fingernails and can eat brownies for every meal, and I've decided I will visit her when I get tired of reading. And in secret, I believe that heaven will be like coming into my parents' bedroom when I get home late at night, like crawling into bed between them so God can ask me in hushed whispers about what I did. I will tell them the best pizza I ever had was in a little street on the heart of Naples, about the rush that came when I took a bow in front of hundreds of people after remembering my lines just right, the way it felt to have a boy kiss me for the very first time and know that someone had chosen to love me, and the way it cracked my spirit to know what happens when love gets unchosen. I will tell them the 1,000 ways I broke my own heart and the 1,000,000 ways I broke the hearts of others. They will hold both my hands, and when I am done, I will sleep in a big bed with clean sheets until I am no longer tired. Thank you.
Looking forward to that book, Madeline. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you. And Rachel, your newest book is I Gave Her a Name, right? Also BCC Press. Yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry, I didn't realize I was still on mute. Yes.
All good. Okay, BCC Press. And Kathryn Knight Sonntag has a book out. I'm blanking. The Mother Tree.
The Tree at the Center.
The Tree at the Center, also BCC Press, correct? Yes. And Melody Newey Johnson has a book out that you can go get, in Imperfect Roundness, also BCC Press. BCC Press for the win. And then Carolyn's new book is Finding Mother God. Remind me who the press is for that one, Carolyn. And you'll have to unmute. Sorry, you're still muted. Carolyn, you're still muted. Sorry. There you go.
Yes, okay. And Gibbs Smith a fine publisher out of Layton, Utah, who publishes to the international press, really.
And it's a lovely hardback
It is.
book.
Don't we love hardbacks?
Yes, yes, we do. So at this point, Heather, are there, oh yeah, please, Rachel.
Maddie mentioned that she's working on finishing a book, and I think it's BCC Press as well, but Maddie, will you tell us?
Oh.
Yes, so it's still in draft phases, but they took a look at a proof of concept and said once I get a full collection, they'll most likely be willing to run it for me. So hoping to have the draft finished by Labor Day, and then hopefully sometime next year. So crossing my fingers.
Wonderful. Does your book have a title, Madeline?
As of right now, it's called Entering into Joy. So pending change, but that's what it is for now.
Wonderful. Oh man, so exciting. So at this point, Heather, do we have questions from our audience?
We do not have questions. They probably just were blown away. I know I was doing really good twice. I was sitting here like tears and like being all puffy, and my children came in to go, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. Just listening to poetry." And enjoying. It was an absolutely lovely session. We do have a couple of minutes. We have about 10 more minutes, and I know that we had mentioned that what we would really love to have happen is that Carolyn has some more poems for us, and that if we had some time at the end, we would love to hear them. Is that still an offering for us today? Because we sure would love to hear some more.
Absolutely.
Oh, as you wish. You know, I've been sitting here philosophizing to myself. I've been reading about what little country was it where maybe not a small country, the poets were being put in prison because they were so dangerous to the establishment. Now, how can we become that powerful? That's what I want to know. As I'm looking at all these revolutionary women, and we have a revolution, and is it going to make any impact anywhere? Is it in our own organization, our church, is it going to have an effect in the next 100 years even? Or are these just going to be looked at as little poems? I don't know. There's so much work to do inside our organization. You know, we have certain losses. The most recent loss was having taken away the one annual women's session of General Conference. And then somehow with that being restored as a unisex session, whoa, I haven't gotten over that. And I might not for a very, very long time. I have written letters about that. And I'm saying there are things at home here in our own religious home that need the revolution that you and I are here to provide. How are we going to do that? I guess we each have to figure out on our own how that's done. Well, if we have time for one more of mine, I love this one. Our Mother and Her Dove. I sent out a dove to find the mother, and I left the window open. The mother whose signature was the dove in ancient days, written with a flourish of feathers, white against blue. So many of the first goddesses were known by the doves in their hands or the doves in their hair. There was Asherah of the groves, the tree of life sprung from Mother Earth and adopted as the Hebrew goddess. The wind came, the wind lifting the dove and shaking the tree, the ruach, the wind, the breath, the spirit, a force all feminine. The spirit of God, Ruach Elohim, was hovering over the waters, and her children knew she was the female presence, the indispensable aspect of the God that created them in God's own image, created them male and female. She suckled the Hebrews and fed the early Christians, and they gave thanks to her as mother, their mother, whom they called the Holy Spirit, whose dove descended to bless the baptism of Jesus, That same dove I sent out when I left the window open. History has drawn an unholy curtain between us and our ancient mother. But I pulled back the veil and I saw. Here's what they did. The monks who translated to please the powers that be, and the powers were he. At the stroke of a quill, the Hebrew she became the Greek it, and then the English he. And no one cared. As the bright feminine words fluttered to the cold floor like clipped wings of a dove. But can a mother forget her child, or a child forget her mother? I sent out a dove to find her and left the window open. The dove is sister to the homing pigeon, so I knew she could find her way back. I had touched her sweet, soft head, and she knew the scent of me. I sent out a dove, and she returned. She fluttered through the window to my open hand. A note was tied to her leg, a little scroll written by the one for whom she is a sign. It read, "Dear one, please forgive the monks. I know you love poetry, so here are 3 haiku from me to you. The past is dust and dissolves in one small gust of God's eternity. Feel the wind shifting. Feel the Ruach Elohim sweep across the land. Feel me move through the holy of holies of your heart and build a nest. Love to all. Please tell the others." I write back to her each evening in my prayers. Sometimes I call her Holy Spirit, often merely Mother.
Absolutely magnificent. Thank you so much. Do you have one more for us today? Is there another also? Not that that wouldn't be the magnificent one to close on, because it's perfect.
Well, okay, here's one. The Omni Factor. Needing your presence tonight, Mother, I invite you. Then I think of the woman on the other side of the planet whose child has ribs like a washboard and eyes dark and empty and huge. And I say, no, she needs you more than I do. But then I remember the happy mystery. You are the woman of the omnis, omnipresent and available to all who say, please come. Of your several omnis, this one is my personal favorite, top of the list of godly powers. A science may explain someday, as the search continues for the arrow of time, qubit entanglement, quantum gravity, and such, explain just how the fine matter of God can sift swifter than light and show up to fill the smallest request, so that he is present here and she is present now, omni and always. When child became children for me, I was split and exhausted, having to choose between here and there. You have no here and there and never have to prioritize your billions, Mother. That's the awesomeness of Godness. So I will take my full portion now, not part, but the whole of your holy presence as we sit together by the fire in my specific home and admire the melody of rain on window and watch my secrets dance between us, my sweetness, my silliness. You observe me with unveiled adoration, as if this moment and this place is the only thing imaginable. And I accept your generous care, knowing that my omnipresent mother is also on the other side of the planet in a little hut, holding another daughter through the unavoidable grief of this mortal world.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we just really appreciate
you.
I am going to close out our session, and thank you all for being here, for reading. Oh, Allie, you wanted to say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought there might be a question, but I know that we're out of time, but
It's
can I
okay.
just hear it? Or you could even email it to me, it's fine.
I just was looking in the Whova app and there were no questions, but there might
no
be.
questions.
Let me look again. I will double check because that's what I
It's
do.
no worries. You can just, if you do find it, you can just email it to me later because I know we're out of time.
No, absolutely. Maybe there is one. Oh, there is one. They just reappeared. The first question is, it says that, you know, what Allie writes, as the lone original sin of blasphemy, Dayna's corporeal body, seagulls consuming crickets, Kathryn's bellies, seeds, nursing grades, Allie's drying milk cow, body heat, animal within, Madeline's hope with talons, and so much more. I wonder if some of you might talk about the tension of the sacred and profane in your work. And we're having late questions, but we might have to have those answers online before Grace comes in and starts texting me and kicking me out of the farm. But yeah, those did appear in the last 5 or 6 minutes.
Thank you for reading that. I thought too, we could also just think about it. Yeah,
It is, it's really a critical thing to think about.
So, yeah.
Well, and also another, the other question that was asked was, has anyone considered putting their poetry to music? And a third, thinking of the dualism of sacred and profane and wondering about that role, is something that if you have a minute or two and you could go into the Whova app and answer directly, that would be so wonderful, because I kept paying attention and there were no questions, but I missed one at the end. I'm so sorry. And we appreciate so much y'all all being here today. This was absolutely lovely. Yeah, I know that there's nothing for me like hearing an artist read their work, because the work itself, I read it, but all of my own work is to be read aloud. It's like, I think that most poetry is like Isaiah. If you get confused by something, it's because it was supposed to be either set to music or it should have been performed. And hearing things aloud, you hear the internal rhymes so much better. You hear the power of the voice, and it was everything to me. So I hope you enjoyed it, even just a portion of how much that I did. And I just adore you all. Thank you so much for being here with us today and participating in this session. And I hate to have to kick you out, but I have to kick you out. So thank you so much. And bye everyone. And after session, you're welcome to hang around and go to the Whova app or speak in those things as well. Thank you.